What up, gamers? Fencer here, and welcome back to my reactions to the Theorizer SpongeBob theories. Last time we watched the Mr. Krabs Pirate Theory, and in this video we'll be watching Gary Theory number 1, 2, 3, and yeah, it's another big one here, like with Mrs. Puff and also Patrick. Which yeah, when it comes to those theories, I do find it to be more interesting, so I am excited for this. Also, you guys have been hyping me up for me to watch this. And yeah, just judging from the thumbnails and stuff here, like, yeah, it looks like Gary might be related to those dolphin people from, at least one of the dolphin people from the SpongeBob movie. I do remember this guy just being from there. I think it was the second one. But yeah, I can definitely see that just with, just based on the clothes over here. Like maybe somehow Gary is connected to them because in Gary's dream, he was presented like this. So maybe like this is his actual true form in a way in his mind, like he's actually intelligent, but then I guess in reality he's kind of like limited in real life, like physically. So yeah, I am uploading this video a lot sooner than later because normally I would upload these videos like maybe every 3 to 4 days, but now it's going to be once a week, just because I just want to maybe just focus on this series. As for like reaction videos, I'm gonna put Death Battle in a break for a while. But yeah, I just want to, start wrapping up this whole SpongeBob Theorizer theories as we go into December here, which I have everything, planned out for me to be scheduled it to be like that. But yeah, here we go, guys. Gary theory number 1, the sinister snail. Let's see how sinister Gary is.
Hello,
Here we go.
I'm the Theorizer, and
Hello.
this is Gary the Snail. I've had a very interesting, very fun time analyzing the psyches and backstories of all the SpongeBob characters, but for some reason, people are incessantly demanding Gary, to which I finally know why.
Yeah, you know what? With Gary, I guess that's going to be interesting to learn about because it's not, you can't really get much about him when it comes to like his dialogue, just because he always says meow. Like that's all he says. I think the only time he really talks like directly with us, like in English, would be like this episode when SpongeBob was dreaming and going into other people's dreams.
Normally when a SpongeBob character is this recurrent but still not primary, I'll do what I did with Mrs. Puff, scan through every single episode in which the character is billed as major. But the thing about Gary is that it seems his oddest moments are offhand and brief. So my usual methodology for auditing a character won't work here. This is both good because the Puff methodology is extremely time consuming, but bad because there are so many little bizarre moments that I feel like all complement one another.
Then you
and
get like these moments too. But even though he doesn't have, I guess, dialogue that, you know, that we can learn about him, he does do these like things that make him feel like more than just an animal.
together to piece the perfect puzzle of what Gary
Like, yeah, he's definitely more
is.
intelligent than
We need to do what I did
we
with
think.
Patrick instead, a generalized audit. Thus, I took to the dreaded community tab on YouTube and asked the people of the world where I should start Gary's vetting process. The answer? The dream episode.
Wait, did I just
In
see
the
that?
episode-
The thing at the end there. Or like, yeah, but there's just mostly meow. No, yeah, that's what I thought too. So I thought it would be just interesting to see like what he came up with here.
Gary's vetting process. The answer? The dream episode. In the episode
Okay.
Sleepy
Yep, just
Time,
what I thought.
SpongeBob is intensely thrust out of his dream, and he astral projects into the dreams of others in Bikini Bottom. First, he infiltrates Gary's dream, where he discovers that Gary has an extremely vivid internal world akin to a mind palace, where he is an intellectual philosopher of sorts,
Yeah.
surrounding himself with books to entertain and educate. He accuses SpongeBob of violating the sanctity of his dream before
So yeah, I assume he's gonna connect this with the dolphin because appearance wise, they both wear that robe. So I'm guessing that's where he's gonna go with.
showing him around anyways. Gary reads some quotes about how, presumably, he has attempted to create an incredibly detailed dreamscape by trying to imagine the same library every night for his whole life. And then,
Dang.
of course, there's the
You know,
obvious.
even though I've watched this episode, I did forgot like what Gary said. So yeah, this is cool just to revisit it.
Gary is in a tall robe and can talk. Before I use this as evidence, I must figure out if this whole astral projection mental possession episode was just more of SpongeBob's dreaming. things are said and done in the dreams he visits that he couldn't have any knowledge of, SpongeBob is, in his own time, generally insane, as we've discussed before. Additionally, at the end of the episode, they wake him up, infuriated that he ruined their dreams. This points to the whole episode being likely to have happened somehow.
Wait, what
so
the heck?
then this
That is so weird just seeing Pearl. Like, normally she has like a ponytail, right? What happened here? What happened to her hair?
that he ruined their dreams. This points to the whole episode being likely to have happened somehow. So then, this is Gary, a philosopher locked in an incapable body, commanding the consumption of, as I said in the intro, copious amounts of food. The official SpongeBob YouTube channel also confirmed that this is Gary's most important moment in the series. He is intriguing. SpongeBob's all like, "You're smart," and Gary claps back with a, "Did you think my shell was full of hot air? No, we thought it was full of that bouncing thickness curvature ass, head ass."
Dude, there's been so many like depictions of like what's under that shell.
Of this
Sometimes it's like really
mollusk
like
is going to be a
veiny or whatever.
because
Sometimes
everything
it's
is
it's like a
implied
butt
of
like
him.
that.
He begrudgingly exists within the physical realm, demanding his energy be conserved for the more mental tasks he takes on during sleep. In other episodes, though, he's just a happy or aggressive or annoying little snail. He behaves like a snail unless he doesn't need to, but he always rolls his eyes at SpongeBob's ridiculousness, and thankfully we no longer need to be confused because now we have confirmation that his intellectualism is not limited to the dream world due to the episode where he gets a vocal collar. This episode is a newer one.
I forgot about this episode. Well, yeah, he said it's a newer one. So yeah, for the newer ones, I don't remember all of them that much.
And it's odd, it feels off. The animation is too fast and slapsticky. There are too many sound effects and it feels like it's under new management, and yet they've tried to mimic that old style of dark comedy a little bit, a lazy, self-aware parody that I'm not sure whether I enjoy or detest. Despite what the credits claim, I don't know if the original creators had a whole lot to do with this season when it was being made. I'm not sure if they'd left at this point or what, but it feels off. Regardless, it is still technically canonical, so it applies here. Gary basically gets a meow translator, and the machine speaks what he is thinking. As
Just
usual,
like with Doug in Up.
Same sophistication from his dream several seasons prior remains. However, this time, he claims he's often been dreaming about world domination.
What?
We see this similarly in Plankton, another limited creature. If I recall, Gary caused a snail revolt and uprising during that
too.
Show episode. So
that is so like, that's so weird looking just to see the arms like stretch out like that.
These ideals have been in place for quite some time. The thing about Gary, though, is that he could achieve this, which brings me to my main point.
I mean, I'm sure he can.
His ideal self-image.
If he's like that smart, like in reality, in his mind, I'm sure he can like think of a way to maybe at some point in the future just I don't know, develop a way for him to be more, I guess, advanced than his current state.
That of the Illuminati dolphin who watches over the solar system and sponge out of water. In the second SpongeBob film, a very, very weird scene occurs in which the ousted Plankton and SpongeBob create
this was such a weird scene.
To save Bikini Bottom from their lack of
so like random
patties. After some chaotic space-time warping, they glitch out of their existential plane and enter what I purport to be a fourth-dimensional space station containing aliens we perceive as the Illuminati, who dedicate their lives to the prevention of a global catastrophe which, for some reason, is implied to be ever-presently imminent. I say this because of the tetrahedron, the Eye of Providence, and the 3D stop motion implying a change in fundamental perspective, as well as the literal fact of requiring a no-clipping time machine to access it, and during the epic rap battle segment it is claimed to be the home of the space-time travelers. They meet the currently employed Watcher, who happens to be a dolphin named Bubbles, an agent of this savior alien race. I'm not sure if they merely see him as a dolphin or not, but his constant chirping tics are in favor of him being some sort of dolphin, or rather, the dolphin species is based off of these aliens. It is a reference to the real-life known intelligence of dolphins, but in this world, the implication would be that dolphins are based off of these things. given Bubbles' far older age. Anyways, Bubbles claims to be the one preventing earthly catastrophe, as well as what he is currently doing, preventing a collision between Jupiter and Saturn. Question: is this even real? There's a dolphin
I
shape
remember
in
in the
this
movie,
nebula, could it be a simulation? The physics of it are all off,
that
and
pretty
these
much happened,
planets
right?
have no reason to collide like this, unless the physics are just a joke and the collision is being caused by some ulterior malevolent force. Bubbles takes a bathroom break and for some reason
Yeah,
doesn't
it
tell
just
SpongeBob and
crashed
Plankton what to do
in
to
the movie.
prevent the planets from colliding. He must have expected them. It's like he knew it was his job to help save the treasured Bikini Bottom, as he later raps. Anyhow, when he returns, they clash a little, and the protagonists escape back into the time flow. Later, Bubbles returns with no animosity, and he has been fired but enjoys it, and has come to grant the Bikini Bottomites a wish, using what I presume to be magic, aka brainwaves attuned to electromagnetism. He enables them to exist as air-breathing characters in the third dimension, as opposed to the otherwise realistic and dried-out animals they've been in episodes of the main show. This allows them to retrieve the Krabby
Wait,
Patty
what the
formula
heck?
from Antonio Banderas, who found a prophecy and stole
Oh, that's why it's like fast forwarding. I thought maybe I like accidentally increased the YouTube speed or something. Okay,
it. Another time. Point is, Bikini Bottom is at
hold on.
bare
I need
minimum
to.
a
That one caught me
2.5
off guard. I
dimension
need,
and has come to grant the Bikini Bottomites a wish, using what I presume to be magic, aka brainwaves attuned to electromagnetism. He enables them to exist as air-breathing characters in the third dimension, as opposed to the otherwise realistic and dried-out animals they've been in episodes of the main show.
yes.
This allows them to retrieve the Krabby Patty formula from Antonio Banderas, who found a prophecy and stole it. Another time. Point is, Bikini Bottom is at bare minimum a 2.5-dimensional flatland that is just as mystical to the surface world as we are to it. I'm not exaggerating. Need I remind you that this is the film which blatantly threw an acid trip to Jupiter in the middle of it? These explanations are needed. All of this is important because it is the single most relevant detail to something crucial, being that Gary is, or has read about or idolized, this omniscient society. British
Okay.
accent, shared. Marine intellectualism, shared. High collar
Ooh.
cloak, check. The details are
And
fuzzy.
I forgot about their accent too. Like, he definitely spoke in a different way, just like with a dolphin, right? With Bubbles.
But this whole scenario
Like, yeah,
overall
there's definitely
is
a lot of similarities. Like, from my mind, it's more of like the body type and just like the cloak too. Like, they're similar. Like even the voice, I forgot about that.
going for the same philosophically
And that they're also sea animals too, like dolphin in space, or I guess dolphin in a as like I guess the head. This time here is a snail.
realist feel, and it succeeds. This rendition of Gary and Bubbles the Bottlenose are going for the same mood, and I believe they are the only ones who share these traits aside from the Cephalopod Lodge, which upon inspection is not related to these in the same way, lest they worship the symbols alone. We see in the
Okay.
episode A Pal for Gary what basically equates to a Lovecraft abomination, and Gary takes out the trash. In another important episode, it's revealed that
Ooh,
Gary is the
forgot about this.
descendant of royalty, but again,
I remember seeing this too, but they never really. Well, yeah, no, they did acknowledge at the end, but I never got to see like I guess the rest of the history.
this is just the vessel he was granted. With all that said, and with what is known about Gary's newfound world domination intentions, I can knock out two birds with one
Wait,
stone and
let me
ask.
just read that again. There's like a.
I can knock
It just
out
felt
two
like kind of
birds
important
with
to
one
read that note.
known about Gary.
Okay, more. He calls himself. Calls his dreams a window to another realm. He says he has earthly limitations, implying he ain't normally earthly. Oh snap! So he's like an alien. Hmm. I mean, I can see that because maybe it's like if he's like maybe in outer space. I don't know if it's like a reverse Superman thing with like kryptonite, but like when he's on Earth, like he's like really, I guess, really powerful. But then if he's like connected to like a part of his planet with it, which is like kryptonite, then yeah, he would be more weaker. I'm guessing it's like the reverse way around with this. So if he's in outer space, maybe he'll get his powers back.
Gary's newfound world domination intentions, I can knock out two birds with one stone and ask, is it possible that Gary is the villain causing these planets to collide? No, it can't be. That's an enormous leap. I mean, As you know, normally I thrive off of details that can be used to piece things together. My natural form is analysis, not brainstorming, so I need to convert this whole situation. While there still exists little evidence beyond what I have described, and therefore very also little to disprove it, I encourage you to comment more because here's my theory. Gary
Okay.
had knowledge of, or some sort of connection to, the race of interdimensional sea creatures that Bubble is a part of. Perhaps
Oh.
he was of a
Yeah,
competing
I mean, I can
race,
see
or
that. Like I
perhaps he
said, it's
was one
just,
of their own.
robe. They're all standing like humans, and they're all like sea animals too.
And I'm not sure exactly what happened, but he left or was ejected for malpractice. Perhaps he allowed planets to collide. Perhaps he allowed Bikini Atoll to be converted into a 2.5D radiation-filled void. I'm not sure, but he left, and there may remain some form of animosity. In being ejected from such a situation, he lands in the second dimension of
Okay,
Bikini
so
Bottom,
let me just rewind that again, so because I don't know if I missed that part. I was talking over it.
to the race of interdimensional sea creatures that Bubble is a part
Because I think I heard like pretty much Gary was in this position as Bubbles, but then he was ejected. Like, I guess maybe fired, maybe.
of. Perhaps he was of a competing race, or perhaps he was
Oh,
one of their own.
okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what happened,
Yeah,
but
that part I kind of
he
like talked
left
over, I
or
think.
was ejected for malpractice. Perhaps he allowed planets to
But yeah, I can
collide.
see that.
Perhaps he allowed Bikini Atoll to be converted into a 2.5D radiation-filled void. I'm not sure, but he left, and there may remain some form of animosity. In being ejected from such a situation, he lands in the second dimension of Bikini Bottom, which makes sense given it being shown to have a direct connection to the observation tetrahedron when Plankton and SpongeBob glitch out into it, and also given its similarly sapient marine creatures. Reborn to royalty, whether it is relevant or not I cannot be sure, but he still sees himself as a bootleg member of this race, of the marine hyperspace beings, and this limited form has changed him. He is becoming more snail-like as the series progresses, until
Okay.
all that
What if like, here's like another theory of mine. Because like during that one scene where SpongeBob was like just pointing at the planets, like in this scene here, what if like, because I don't remember the scene like fully, but just seeing SpongeBob like point at Saturn here, what if like the sea creatures, like when they're in outer space, they're just more powerful, Like I said, like maybe a reverse kryptonite when they're out of Earth, they just maybe get more powers, and somehow SpongeBob used the Force to crash Saturn and Mars or Jupiter together. I forgot which planet that was.
that remains is the clueless vengeance he desperately retains in his subconscious, fury at his limitations, despite the
Or I guess that
royalty
wouldn't be a reverse kryptonite. I don't know. I'm getting myself confused now with the whole kryptonite stuff. Because now they're out of their planet, and I guess they got more powerful.
he supposedly pushed himself into, banished to a gastropod with an enormous world inside of his shell, something physically impossible in our dimension. Gary is the evil force that wants to collide the solar system. He is a nihilist, and we see it. Gary is very changeable. He often loves SpongeBob, other times he doesn't care. He's all over the place because he knows this is all temporary.
This was a weird episode, man.
His diagnosis: he's not a psychopath. He plays with everyone and allows his abilities to be used by metal detectors like crabs because he is bored. He's a nihilist disgruntled with the form he is bound to. Again, the biggest evidence is his pocket dimension shell, no matter the situation.
You know what?
He violates physics and second and third dimensional logic.
Like I'm sure, his shell, like whatever's under his shell is probably for just, cartoon reasons. But yeah, if you think about it that way, his shell can also just be like a pocket dimension, just him just spawning whatever he wants there.
In a way no other SpongeBob character really does. His food levels truly do sustain a mind that doesn't belong there. I'm happy because so much can fall under this and be explained, something usually only applicable to the disgusting hypotheses known as dream theories. In his mental library, he tells SpongeBob the story of a man who dreamt that he ate his shoe, and then woke up and realized he did it in real life too. This would parallel how Gary's rich inner world can interfere with the space around him, could have caused a planetary collision during his furious confusion as Snail King in the film. This overall is the best explanation for the sheer fact that Gary demonstrates odd abilities throughout the show. This is outlandish on the surface given the initial situation, but the only logical way to deal with all of the weird things he does. remnant of his old omnipotence. Because really, Gary does a lot of unexplainable things, and the most important moment he's ever had in the show compares him to Bubbles. This is direct. He is a lord of space-time, an impossibly large mind and pocket universe shell. He roars and breaks the laws of being a snail, eldritch horror. I do wonder if the snail plasma that turns SpongeBob into a snail is the sort of thing that just further suppresses the Lovecraftian residue in that shell of his. But what gets me most of all is this new stop-motion SpongeBob film coming up, which just so happens to be all about Gary. Bubbles is
Oh, so this was made before that whole like I forgot the name of that whole movie, but that Poseidon movie, pretty much.
stop motion. Coincidence? We pretty much never see this elsewhere. The films have a selectively retroactive continuity. They're their own thing. There is an amazing amount of evidence for all of this craziness. I just need more instances.
Oh, ad. Actually, I think that was it for the first video because when I skipped the ad, it took me to the next video because I'm in a playlist. It took me to the second Gary theory, and I decided to check back just to make sure, like back in the first video. And yeah, at the ending there, like he kind of ends the video with him just interrupting himself, like just cutting himself at the end. Like there's no usual outro and stuff, which I assume is a mistake on his part when it comes to him editing. Like maybe the rendering did not fully process. Um, but yeah, still, I think that video was pretty much done. I don't think I really missed out too much on it. Um, but yeah, guys, let's go move on to the second theory or the second part of the Gary theory, the insidious agenda.
I've solved the Illuminati dolphin from the second SpongeBob film. You may have missed it because, fair warning, this is actually the second half to that video, so if you've missed my entire proposition of what Gary is,
did he just decide to cut it? Like that's why he was interrupted?
and watch that video first, because today I'm here to finish it. I'm here to discuss evidence that commenters brought to the table. I'm here to officially diagnose Gary, and more pressingly, I'm here to finally do a deep delve into Gary's twisted inner reflection, Bubbles the bottlenose dolphin.
Yeah, so far I do enjoy this theory because, it does explain a lot with like Bubbles and also Gary. Especially Bubbles, man, because that whole scene within the second movie was just so, like, out there.
Hello again.
That I feel like it could be explained
and as ridiculous
if
as this
people
whole
wanted to.
situation is, I will tell you again, it is the most probable solution to all of the
and I do like the
impossible
connection
things Gary does.
with like Gary's
a recap. Based on multiple
like dream
instances
realm
of parallel proof, I concluded that it was merely possible that Gary the Snail used to be whatever Bubbles is from Sponge Out of Water, mainly because Gary's self-image is highly similar to the likes of Bubbles. But what really intrigued me was my additional spontaneous dissection of what Bikini Bottom is, and what exactly the whole dynamic is between this dolphin alien race and the dimensions they traverse. The best technical way to describe the observations seen from the film is that this omniscient alien race we know as the Illuminati is actually composed of fourth-dimensional beings that appear to us as sea creatures. They watch over us and prevent catastrophe on a galactic scale because it would seem as though there is some sort of threat that needs to be blocked. As to what that threat is, I wasn't certain, and I'm still not, but I've got many ideas based on intuitive presumption. First of all, it's either an individual or a group that is threatening existence. If it's an individual, it's most likely a rogue member of this marine race. If it's a group, it is most likely a competing interdimensional race of sea creatures, so is Gary a part of this Illuminati, or is the solar system trapped in a war between an advanced race of dolphins and an advanced race of the sea snails? I'll be more specific. As you know, this fourth-dimensional 3D tetrahedron thing has a direct temporal spatial link to Bikini Bottom. I determined Bikini Bottom to be some sort of 2.5-dimensional flatland beneath the ocean. This link is proven when Plankton's time machine glitches out of time and into outer space, and more pressingly, it is proven when whatever Gary is teleported from there to Bikini Bottom and became this
I can see that.
apathetic mollusk. But here's the big one. When I was writing that script, I sat there for quite a while and debated to myself whether or not I should include something particularly interesting. You see, in the past, only once or twice, I have used evidence that could be seen as visually subjective evidence that could be a visual coincidence. For example, in my 12th theory on the film Coraline, I claimed I could see the face of another character
Okay.
hidden in the darkness, but it
I assume this is like spoilers for that theory, but also I didn't really like I did watch Coraline in a way, but like I wasn't really paying attention to it. So I'm sure this part will, be like forgetful in in my eyes or in my head.
could have just been the way I'd brightened it. This is very tricky to try and pass off as valuable evidence because some people
Oh
can't
wait,
see it.
that's pretty cool. So I guess from what he just said right now, he just brightened up an image, right? I know that's one way that whenever it comes to like secrets, that's like one way to uncover something. Let me just hear it again.
See the face of another character hidden in the darkness, but it could have just been the way I'd brightened it. This is very tricky to try and pass off as valuable evidence because some people can't see it, and Coraline in particular was stop motion. But I say all of this because I chose not to mention it in that Gary theory. I waited. I sifted through all of the comments I could.
I'm actually
and now I feel
write that down. Write that
completely
down.
comfortable sharing this little detail because I was not the only one who saw this exact same.
You know that one comment
thing.
talking about the intro getting jump scared, but like so far I haven't really. There wasn't really any of that right now.
And came to the exact same conclusion independently. Here's the image. Now,
He's gonna brighten it up,
I wouldn't
or
call out any odd patterns in something as vast and random as a nebula, but last video I mentioned the dolphin shapes, which were extremely intentional and actually
Oh.
photoshopped in. The only other thing I held back was, well, do you see it? Because a lot of people,
No.
in fact, did. As I showed the image while describing
Wait,
this
I just see it
ulterior
now.
malevolent force.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
what can be perceived as a much more indistinct, much more subtle model of what this series shows to be a snail.
Yeah,
With the exact
like when he
same
started to do the brightness thing. Like wow, that's a snail. Oh snap! This is such interesting evidence. Like so far, like in this theory, I believe pretty much all of it. The only thing that I don't, I'm like, still iffy on, and also the theorizer acknowledges is that, the reason why he's doing this, like if there's like a threat, if there's like an individual or a group, I feel like that part is still, like in the air. But everything else has been pretty good, and I do like this. I do like this find. I never even realized that. Wow.
open mouth as an aggressive Gary. Now, this is tricky. And a little
I don't know.
subjective, of course. It's an observation,
I can definitely see it, man. I mean, it does look like Gary. This part here looks even like his shell here. It's even like the same colors too, like the blue, and then you got like I guess the pink in a way, but it's more orange. But it's still like close enough. Wow. And where are those dolphins at? I don't know where those dolphins are at. Like around in this image. I don't know if it's also like within this area too. But I think it's still like interesting to see. You know?
not my final damning piece of evidence at all, but we know that the animators have already altered this photo once. This isn't
what?
just me taking a shot in the dark.
They altered
but
it?
it would be beautifully fit with what I've been saying. That the dolphins are defending the solar system and the threat, the logically necessary force that they are protecting it against, are at war.
Welcome to jail, Smurf.
Ed, all right, let's resume.
There are two dolphins and a single snail.
Oh,
which
now
to
I
me
see it.
would imply
It's over here, the dolphins. I just didn't know where it was placed at.
the individual threat is the case, meaning Gary alone, meaning my offhand comment about him colliding the planets during his psychokinetic unbridled sleep time rage during the reign of Snail King is right, and he collided them using his real-life shoe-eating poem dream capabilities, as we see
What the heck?
during the highly coincidental time when he's lost control in the film from no Krabby Patties. Bubbles claims
yeah.
to be watching over for like 10,000 years, though, and Gary's snail form is not that old, so perhaps an entire evil race as opposed to one rogue Illuminati member is still plausible, especially if that is not a snail in the nebula. Back to Bubbles, though, and here's where it gets interesting. In part 1, I also nonchalantly said it was Bubbles' chosen destiny to protect Bikini Bottom because it is a treasured little pocket dimension. Yes, dimension, not a pocket universe, a dimension, at a nexus between width and height. I mean, all the characters are 2D, and yet they roam an environment comparable to 3D, but not at all similar to what's going on in the actual 3D environment on land. When we see them there, they are dried up hyper-realistic marine life, aside from when ding 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 bubbles.
So now he's going to connect like when they go underwater and over water, like on land. Oh, that's cool.
Converts them to proper land dwellers. Bubbles left the physically impossible collision of two gas giants to a couple dimension-and-a-half lower beings because it was either a lazy test or because he wanted to be fired. Laid off, like Gary, so he could aid in the salvation of Bikini Bottom, so that the imminent problem, Gary, could be fixed. As he raps later about saving patties in the past, that place is probably millions of years in our future, and yet it has a direct space-time past tie. Wonderful. He couldn't leave then, but now he can. The Gary life. Now, I must say, I did get a commenter who pointed out that in the episode Sponge Kano, a magic dolphin came to town, claimed he was from an ancient warrior race, and told them how to stop a volcano from erupting. He claimed his people were wiped out. Now, this
I don't
magic
remember this
dolphin
episode.
seems delusional, and I cannot be sure whether he's just another fan of the stories of these aliens, like the Cephalopod Lodge, or if he is a banished member, like Gary, in the process of memory loss and slow degradation. He feels more like a beta version, what with his bootleg magic and questionable accent, but it proves my point yet again. There are offshoots of Bubbles everywhere, and it's quite possible that things like Snail plasma and doctors like this clueless and dubious man are intentional suppressants. Just look at what it did to SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Now, finally, onto the Gary evidence. I got most of it already. A lot of people, as usual, misinterpreted what I said in the video, but not in a particularly bad way. It happens too much. I say a ton of stuff very fast and describe my thoughts with large words as
I wonder what they misinterpret, because I feel like I kind of got it.
offhand comments, and people try to figure out exactly what I've just said. During them trying to figure it out and process through my babbling, they have a realization and comment their little theory without realizing it's just what I've said in the video, and well, that they've processed what I've said. This was most of the evidence I received, but in general, it's all the same. Gary just knows things. He can communicate his thoughts quite well most of the time and is receptive to others, like his speech up on stage, which Sandy claimed displayed his wonderful way with words. Many pointed out how he manifests limbs in real life too, and how he just gets everything. It should be obvious.
No, yeah, I think just having this shell being like a pocket dimension, like I think that's such a cool explanation of like why, like how Gary's able to like do stuff like this, like with the record player and now these shoes.
Is at this point that Gary is not what he seems, and that simply, in fact, what Bubbles is just fits best of all probabilities. And considering that crazy bootleg Bubbles, things only click more and more. Here's a big one that I noticed when browsing through a few of Gary's best. We have explicit evidence of him teleporting, and floating like Bubbles. Look at this. Look! I mean, how much more do we need? He shared.
I mean, yeah, of course you can just say it's like cartoon logic, you know, like I said before. But no, I mean, if we're trying to make sense of like the whole, I guess, if trying to connect these guys to like the magic stuff, like that doesn't sound like far-fetched, you know?
Down to a detailed and predicted skill set, the same abilities as Bubbles. And of course, there's all of the obvious comparisons too, like the visual and the auditory. They're cut from the same cloth, but I don't know if Gary was ever an observer. You may have missed some additional evidence I found when editing too. I snuck it in the video a little bit, but I have to elaborate on that a bit too. In his library, he calls dreams windows to another realm, which is almost like just dancing around the concept of his fourth-dimensional time-shifted innards and their stratospherically Jovian origins. He also describes his life in Bikini Bottom as having many earthly limitations, implying that yes, he is not very earthly and does not belong here. He even chose the body of an heir directly related to Patrick for some reason, and more pressingly, it looks as if he doesn't even have a mother, which is odd because usually maternal relationships are more commonly known on family trees given the concept of birth. The one thing I finally want to discuss, though, is the book. Gary is a library of knowledge, and the choice to display his knowledge this way is what gets me, because it is the exact same concept as this prophetic book that details the story of Bikini Bottom. The book that allows everything written inside of it to come true. It was written by the dolphin race and predicts the future. Why is the SpongeBob's second movie so important? Why is it the moment of the prophetic book? Because it's the moment.
Man, I never thought the second movie would be discussed this much because, when it comes to the, like, I guess the movies afterwards, like after the first one, I never felt like they were that important. Like maybe with the exception of like the Sandy Cheeks movie that came out recently, because yeah, with that movie kind of like confirmed more of like with Alex Bale's television theory. But yeah, like I never thought much about like the other movies that isn't like the first one.
Bottom.
I
The
feel like it's just not
2.5D
discussed enough,
interacts with the 4D, the dolphins, the people who run the show. Bubbles is
Or I guess with
tied
Alex, he
to
also did the third movie too. But I feel like this is more impressive, man. Especially with that snail in space, like the galaxy thing, the stars.
said book because it uses
This one
similar
feels more
magic
impressive,
and can
man,
undo
of a
and
find.
redo what he has done himself. If I recall, there was a video game made based on the movie in which the plot was Bubbles asking the Bikini Bottomites to recollect all of the missing pages for him.
Really?
This book originated on the
Never played
Bikini
that.
Atoll island above Bikini Bottom,
I
which
mean, I
was
know there's like a lot of SpongeBob games. I've only like maybe played a couple of them, like one on the DS. I think it was on the DS or something, where you it was the Square Pantis thing,
known,
the
no
Atlantis Square
joke, in
Pantis,
real life for
and
being
then
a nuclear testing site.
those remakes of
Yes,
those
there
old
have
SpongeBob
been
games recently.
many theories circulating in the past about how these testings created Bikini Bottom, and knowing what we know now about Bikini Bottom being a dimensional anomaly, this isn't too far-fetched, and in fact gives me core-shaking flashbacks to Twin Peaks: The Return.
Okay, let's resume.
Point is, this book was being guarded on the island and was most likely put there by the dolphin race, which would mean they know about Bikini Bottom, and basically all of this wraps around and proves it's all connected. And that the
Even the
dolphins had
placement
a
of the
hand in
book.
the creation of this
I do
dimensional
remember it was on that
rift,
island.
Bikini Bottom. Hence the portal being opened and the tie being made, and all of this working like the nuke ripping through a fourth dimension. And while I'm not fully on board with that classic theory of SpongeBob and friends are the product of a nuke, I am agreeing that those most likely have a hand in it, or in the least, they'd alerted the dolphin race to the world's primary nuclear testing ground, which, given time, prophetic books, and a lengthy interdimensional explanation, all connects. And I mean, even Bikini Atoll on land transforms into 2.5D madness when a godforsaken hand converts it, causing Bubbles to appear not minutes later with full knowledge of SpongeBob, the song, the TV show, everything. It's like Bubbles is the watcher of the TV show in this scene. We hear him speak from behind us in the audience when they sing the song, which also fits with, as a commenter pointed out, the dolphin censorship that covers the Sailor Mouth episode.
Oh,
They
snap.
are the filter through which we
Oh,
witness
even explained the whole Sailor Mouth episode. Wow, okay.
show, in which case, since we're also watching the movie, what does that make us? Bubbles is a being of pure light who shoots red lasers out of his blowhole. Is he defending the universe from us, or are we just the true ones who watch all? So, what's the final verdict? Well, given that it's one of the better possible solutions I've thought of for all of the odd behavior inside of Gary, here's the diagnosis. Gary is a fourth-dimensional marine alien from the far reaches of space who was ejected by the Illuminati to Bikini Bottom, probably for creating a book that channels their power, where he's since become an apathetic nihilist disgruntled at the limitations of his new form, an intelligent and omnisciently remnant gastropod mollusk. Bikini Bottom is an anomaly, a split-dimensional abnormality. When its Krabby Patty feng shui, or whatever, was thrown off, Gary was as well, as were the planets Saturn and Jupiter, which, due to being located next to the 4D space station, have entangled with Bikini Bottom for their anomalous dimensional qualities. Quantum fragilities, indeed. So that's that. Not as much a diagnosis video as usual. I will probably comment more insanity if need be, because we just solved Bikini Bottom's origins, and of course we've previously solved how the lesser citizens function too, like the chocolate guy. But who do I target next? Sandy? Karen?
I mean, I
Comment
know
below.
there's
I
one
am
more Gary
desperate for
video I
another
gotta watch.
question to answer. I'm good at that, not so good at knowing what needs solutions though. This is a hell of a way to start 2020, so until next time, fellow
2020.
five-dimensional hands, I'm the Theorizer.
Alright, so yeah, very interesting, man. Like, I really do like... Is there any more at the end here? It just looks kind of long. Okay, no. Yeah, a very interesting, like, theory so far, man. Like, already, like, I'm fine if the Theorizer, like, ended off like this, but I know there's, like, one more. But dude, like, this one pretty much competes with, um, like with the Patrick theory. But even more, like, just seeing that thing in outer space, you know, the Gary thing in outer space, and even the dolphins. Like, it really does make me think that there's definitely something like this happening. That there's definitely more that is happening in the background that we don't know about. And that it kind of explains why bubbles is a thing, because I've always thought that was so weird. Like, for me especially, like, just seeing that evidence, like for me, my favorite SpongeBob theory so far would be Alex Bale's television theory. I feel like the Gary theory kind of like rivals that for me in a way. Like, it's just that good for me. Like, it just makes me now kind of... It's one of those theories that makes me see the show differently now. Like, of course, I would say maybe the television theory has more evidence to it, but this one feels more like scary, man. Just thinking about Gary, like being this space alien thing, and that he was like banished to Bikini Bottom, and that he's being suppressed by just being like the snail that he is right now. But yeah, like I think this was a really good job of like just trying to explain like Bubbles' existence, and also trying to I guess go more into Gary, because you know with the theorizers he's trying to go through like all the characters, like trying to get as much characters as possible to explain their their you know, their mental state and all that stuff. Dang, dude. Oh yeah, if it ended like this, like I would really... I would be satisfied, but there is one more video that we gotta watch. Alright guys, the last part of the Gary theory. Gary the snail is an alien god. I mean, so far, I do believe that, or I can at least understand where the theorizer is coming from with that kind of title, but yeah, let's hear more about it.
Let's get through this real quick. I assume if you're watching this, then you've already seen my absolutely insane theory on Gary the Snail from SpongeBob SquarePants. He's a four-dimensional Illuminati occultist dolphin. I will link the first 2/3 of this now 3-parter above, because everyone, guess what? I'm stupid. I am, in particular, very stupid indeed. I always planned the 3-parter for Gary.
I don't know.
I've talked about this, remember? Mrs.
I mean,
Puff
so
got
far,
3
I don't think he's stupid like Patrick. But no, he's been like very good with these theory videos so far.
Parts, Patrick, 3 parts. Anytime there's a particularly interesting lead I've found with SpongeBob, I hit them with a 3-parter. But the reason I'm stupid is because I left a huge chunk out of part 2 that was supposed to be there. It was to be the final and rather obvious puzzle piece.
Oh,
Luckily,
really?
I've saved it for here because Gary and the Observers created humanity.
What? Okay. I'm curious about this now. They created humanity. So I'm part of the... I'm like his child.
Hello. Theorizer is me. Before I finish all
like
of this
Gary's
off with
child.
the
I don't know.
panspermia theory I've concocted, there were a few final questions I got on part 2 that would be criminal to avoid. One involves Patchy the Pirate's dimension, one involves
What?
Doodlebob's dimension, and one
Wait,
involves
what the heck did I just hear? Now we're talking about Patchy and his dimension? What?
criminal to avoid. One involves Patchy the
Let me
Pirate's
go back a bit more. Okay. I need to hear that again. I'm so caught off guard by Patchy, like I don't know what he has to do with this.
Hello. Theorizer is me. Before I finish all of this off with the panspermia theory I've concocted, there were a few final questions I got on part 2 that would be criminal to avoid. One involves Patchy the Pirate's dimension, one involves Doodlebob's dimension, and one involves a
Doodlebob.
comment that
That's good
finally
too.
explained to me why I'm so stupid.
Because like with Doodlebob, oh geez, that's a creepy image. Like with Doodlebob, I remember one episode, like it was you know, a more recent one in the more recent seasons where they entered this like SpongeBob and Patrick. They entered this one like doodle area, this doodle like realm or dimension. Okay, let me play.
How I basically proved something so near undeniable without saying or remembering I'd pondered and used it as a basis in some ways. First, Patchy. So Patchy seems to be in some sort of alternate dimension in which the Illuminati televises SpongeBob. That, or he is the representation of us, the spatially 5D or higher. He's an obsessive fan, but he's definitely above SpongeBob in terms of obvious dimensionality. I have an excellent metaphor I've come up with when pondering all of this. Well, not really excellent, but for those who've seen those videos on the fourth spatial dimension, it's odd. It's sort of like
not.
4D shapes are at a cross-section in our dimension, but here's an interesting sort of way to think about it. 3D characters on televisions. They rotate and look like they're in a 3D environment, even though the picture's 2D, but then there's us watching said 3D environment still from above, from behind the TV. There's a really neat way to think of 3D cross-sections, and unfortunately that's the best conceptual way to think about it here, no matter how human and limited I truly sound in saying that. As for Doodlebob, he's simply two-dimensional. I was cautious about branding Bikini Bottom as full-on 2D for the sheer reason that the characters sort of, well, they don't act 2D. Doodlebob, though, more so does, even though he still exists in this slightly more open world. I got a lot of comments also commenting on something that didn't have any weight on my theory as a whole, but I brought it up and sort of got it 50% wrong when explaining. That being Gary's dad. I said based on the family tree, it's more likely it would show a mother here. I said this because yes, I know snails can be asexual, but so can many other creatures on this tree, including Patrick, as I've proven. And
I didn't know
they
that
show
part
signs
with
of asexuality here.
or like
it's
snails.
inconsistent, so I ended up going with the local pattern on the tree, which had otherwise shown two parents no matter what. Again, the point was that he had a relation to Patrick. That was just a neat thing I mentioned. His relation has basically no weight on the theory overall, and Gary's dad being the only one present had literally zero weight on the theory, but I just wanted to clarify. Okay, time for the theory to evolve, starting with the biggest slap to the face I've received with these SpongeBob theories henceforth. I've made theories before where I've stated so much and constantly danced around a single fundamental shocking secret without even noticing it. This happened again. True or not, I feel dumb for not mentioning it. I feel so stupid. And there were actually a couple of people who commented about this, but Gary is Bubbles. His voice is a mental recreation of what he remembers himself to sound like. Bubbles didn't want.
I mean, I guess maybe you can say that. It's just the only thing that would be, I guess, disproven would be like the race. Like Gary's a snail and Bubbles is a dolphin. So everything else is similar. Like can be attributed to him being the same. But like, I wonder what's up with the dolphin then.
To retire and have the Gary life, he already did it. After the film, the dejected Bubbles time travels back and becomes our exiled mollusk, so he can slowly assimilate and forget the pains of 10,000 years rejection. The higher-ups Bubbles refers to does mean there's still this whole race of 4D sea creatures, but Bubbles became the snail we know and love, the one we see with the shell in this nebula, Gary. I also saw a fish here, but you know, this is still all sort of subjective, and I don't like using this nebula as much evidence. And as amazing as it is if Bubbles is Gary, I do foresee some complications with such an idea. From what I remember, I might have actually pondered this before, but cut it for its inability to properly fit, and I straight up forgot about it until it was brought up to me again, but it's still so fascinating and amazing enough to mention. I don't know if I'd fit it into my main theory, but the complications and likewise the solutions I will allow to be debated in the comments section, so please do. That's all a little step towards more brainstorming, but now comes my theory. The part that I completely forgot to mention. I believe this alien race is not just responsible for Bikini Bottom. I made that whole part 2 so I could build to this point, and then I forgot to say it. The aliens created humanity as well.
Oh, here we go.
It's implied everywhere. They watch over and protect us. What are we, some random creatures on some random planet they view? No, we are the idyllic pet project. cellular evolution, consciousness, so on and so forth, the whole 9 yards. The humans in SpongeBob exist because of the dolphins. It's no different than their creation of Bikini Bottom. It's obvious. The magical book. Do I have to spell it out? It's the Bible of Bikini Bottom, a prophetic origin story detailing SpongeBob meeting his makers.
That's a cool way to see it, a Bible.
Sponge out of water. It's the dolphins' book. They created Bikini Bottom. It's a proxy for the Bible, which evidently implies there's more than just one level of similarity. We, the viewers, are the 5D hands, as I said at the end of part 2. You have Doodlebob's dimension, the second. Bikini Bottom is an interim dimension between the second and the third being the humans we see in Sponge out of water. Patchy is
That's such a cool
higher
way to think about it. Like all these different dimensions. So like Doodlebob would be 2D. And then now I understand why he said that Bikini Bottom is 2.5D. And then on the surface would be more 3D. So when you enter these different areas, like you get the different visual styles.
alternate dimension, but Bubbles is the fourth, and we are the one above all. So much is done for comedic effect, but it has implications in the lore which itself is confusingly selectively canon. It's an interim dimension of cartoon physics. In the first movie, they don't fully fade into the third dimension when on land because they are near water almost the whole time. They dry up, but are still not fully immersed. This is also proven by how the undead pufferfish and other hut animals are magically revived with water after being dead so long. They're not real pufferfish, they are bikini bottomites, sub-dimensional aliens to us. This is all so amazing, so fantastic and so perfect. I love doing this so much, so I went back and watched a few more episodes of SpongeBob, and then I screamed. My jaw dropped and my heart skipped a beat, dilating my pupils out of unadulterated existential terror. The pure mind f***ery of what I witnessed will blow you to bits. Holy bubbles. That is the realization. Holy bubbles. In the corner of a shot, in the episode Goodbye Krabby Patty, we bear witness to a recreation of Michelangelo's famous Adam painting in which God is replaced with a dolphin. This is the evidence, the smoking gun, the nail in the coffin. This whole time, it's pretty easy to convince you all that Bubbles is an alien. There are clear signs everywhere. It's actually hard to debunk it, but it's harder to convince you that these same aliens are the humans' gods in film, because they show no signs of mentoring or creating humanity until now. This is a human painting. This art parody, which has been slipped in by the animators, is canonical proof that dolphins in SpongeBob are not only intelligent aliens, but actual representations of divinity. Gary is not a god, he's the god. They called me crazy. A madman maniac out of his depth. This is nothing. I analyzed Andrew Stanton's tweet and stretched it over 10 minutes. I spent 12 weeks analyzing The Dentist from Nemo and fit it into a 3-hour video, all to prove Donald's parents were divorced. I've spent hours
Maybe I should watch those videos
and stitching together family trees and timelines unrivaled in their meticulousness. I calculated the weight of Chantel Dubois so I could call her an absolute unit.
Oh, ad. Okay, so I think the same thing happened from like the first video where he kind of like cut off the ending in a I guess in an accidental way because he was in the middle of a sentence and then it just ended right there after he was talking about Shantae. But yeah, guys, that was pretty much it for the Gary theory, man. Like, yeah, I gotta say, I think that theory so far is my favorite out of the theorizers. When it comes to SpongeBob, though, like I still think the television theory is my favorite from Alex Bale, just because it seems to be very believable with all the amounts of like evidence and just how like consistent they were. But just seeing that Gary theory though, like, I feel like it kind of like rivals it in a way. I think especially with that thing in space, you know, just seeing like those dolphins and the giant snail, if that is supposed to be a snail in space. But yeah, I think that's really like interesting to think about, just like with that one piece of evidence, like I do feel like there could be like more to it like than like what meets the eye, you know. But yeah, I think overall this theory, I feel like I don't really have much to say about it just because, you know, I don't really have any like, you know, criticism that much. The only thing would be like maybe like I said before where, you know, we don't know like if they're like actually defending or like, you know, against like a group, like when he talks about like it's being like an individual or a group that they're up against. I would say maybe only that part is up in the air, but that part doesn't really matter that much. I think the one that matters the most is just talking about like how Gary is related to like Bubbles and like his whole race and stuff of like these space dolphins. But yeah, I think yeah, I do think that like the overall the theory probably my favorites, one of my favorites or yeah, it is my favorite for the Theorizer, but definitely one of my favorite SpongeBob theories to watch, man, because yeah, I remember I think one of you guys, like I said before, one of you guys described that this theory to me back in the day. I think back in the first theory I watched from the Theorizer, and when I read that, it's one of those things where it does sound like very, like, I guess far fetched. Like it sounds like something that maybe that didn't really make any sense that I would maybe don't care about like right now. But then after like watching stuff like the Patrick theory, like I'm starting to believe that maybe this might be a thing. And now here we are, just watching the Gary theory, and yeah, it is definitely it is very believable now. And I do like the whole thing with the different dimensions too, like having that pocket dimension inside Gary's area, like Gary's shell, and then the 2D with Doodle Bob, the 2.5D with Bikini Bottom, and then 3D, and then 4D, like all that stuff. And even with the whole like censorship too, with the Sailor Mouth episode, like he even talked about that, how it connects with Bubbles, and why it's like a dolphin sound whenever they curse. And like it is always a dolphin sound too, like whenever they curse. Like one time they did, I think it was Mr. Krabs' mother. Like I'm guessing she didn't curse because the sound effect they used was like the car. And then yeah, like Mr. Krabs' mother was like, "What? That was just Old Man Jenkins." Like it hit Old Man Jenkins' car. But man, yeah, very awesome theory. This is definitely one of my favorites to watch. I really love this theory a lot. So yeah, guys, that was it for the Gary theory number 1 to 3. And then next time we'll watch the Flying Dutchman is a Roman death genie. I guess I can see that. There was that one episode where the Flying Dutchman gave SpongeBob, Patrick, and I guess Squidward at the end like 3 wishes, right? So I'm guessing it relates to that. And then yeah, finally, the dimension theory. Oh man, we're going back to the dimensions? Oh snap. And then we got this one, my first time on camera. Oh, face reveal? And I'm ranting about SpongeBob's nukes. 4 minutes long though. I might just merge these last two videos together just because, since this one is like very, very short compared to like all the other ones. I think that's what I'll do. Just merge the SpongeBob SquarePants dimension theory with this the SpongeBob nuke theory. Yeah, I can't wait to see what the nukes is all about, because I know he lightly touch upon it in the Gary theory. But yeah, this was an amazing theory, man. But yeah, that was pretty much it for the Gary theory. Next time is the Flying Dutchman theory. So yeah, that'll be for now, guys. That's a game.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good